Hello, welcome to Early Childhood Learning Bites. I am Dr. Isela Garcia, and today we're going to explore the difference between social and emotional learning and development and behavior management. Social and emotional learning is focused on all the ways children develop emotionally and how they develop socially. It takes into account what we know about early brain development. An example of this is infants. They have an innate need to connect with those who love and care for them. And we really pay attention to the importance of those early relationships. It is understanding that every child comes with their own unique personality, their own experiences of life, their own culture, race, ethnicity, and their own experiences in terms of language or how they're loved and cared for. We even take into account experiences that may be challenging or even harmful. The key to social and emotional learning is learning about each individual child. When we know about each child, we can then identify what they're experiencing emotionally and what they're experiencing socially. So let's talk a little bit about emotional development. Self-awareness is the very first part of our emotional learning. This is the process of developing and understanding a sense of self. You have to remember that in the earliest of years, we are building foundations for continued growth, learning, and development. So this is really about who am I? And when young children develop an awareness, they start to notice what they like to do and what they don't like. They also start to notice who they are, the color of their skin, maybe the texture of their hair, the color of their eyes, how they're shaped, their noses, even how their faces are formed. They just really start to notice themselves. They're saying, hey, that's me. This is the beginning of their self-concept. They also start to become aware of their strengths and abilities. This is where they develop interest. And then if you fast forward this self-awareness, it's also the ability to identify emotions and thoughts and values and how those things influence behaviors in all kinds of situations. Then there's self-regulation, also a part of emotional development. And it's the ability to manage behaviors. It's really developing the ability to shift gears, move from one activity to another. It's feeling frustrated and yet having the ability to stop their body before whacking someone across the head. Self-regulation in the early years is foundational. It's foundational for managing emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. It's the ability to use planning and organizational skills. And it's also the ability to identify and use stress management strategies. And I bet some of you are thinking right about now, I wonder how my self-regulation skills are, right? So now let's take a quick look at social development. Social development, there's so many things, right? Under this umbrella is social awareness and empathy, as well as relationship skills. And this includes how young children interact with familiar adults. It's their interactions and connections with their peers. And in the beginning, as I mentioned before, with babies, we see them connect with others through their eyes. We notice where their focused attention is. Or we notice the sounds they make in relation to others. Ba, ba, ma, ma. Like we notice that, right? Or even how they move their bodies. They continually seek connection from not only their caregivers, but other babies as well. Now, as young children grow, they begin to understand that other people have different or like different things than they do. They begin to become aware that their behaviors impact others. They move from playing next to one another to maybe exchanging some toys and maybe even building together. And then maybe even then creating a play scene where they're saying, you're the mommy, I'm the baby, and you can be the dog, right? They also begin to express empathy and concern for others. Have you ever seen a toddler bring a comfort item like a pacifier, a blanket, or a snuggly to someone who's feeling sad? Now, this is the foundation for playing and working with others, collaborating, being able to effectively work with teams. All of this is such an integral part of life, right? Being able to listen and communicate, work through conflict. Now you're really thinking, I'm looking at my skills as well, right? But see, this doesn't magically happen. This is where social and emotional learning comes into play. Now, remember I said the key to social and emotional learning is learning about each individual child, but that's not the whole story. That's just the beginning step. The next step is being aware how you show up each day. Now, I've already talked about this in the other videos, so please go watch them, and we're going to continue to talk more and more about the importance of how we show up. But in essence, it's creating a safe space for them emotionally and physically. It's how you listen. It's how you develop loving relationships. It's even how you perceive them, your thoughts about them, your feelings about them, and your actions and behavior as you engage. So the first step is knowing the child, truly knowing the child. And that means being connected to the family, learning from the family, who it's really their first teachers. They know their child best. The second is being aware of how you're showing up and how you are opening your heart. And the third is understanding what you can do to help strengthen their emotional skills as well as their social skills. So let's just imagine for a moment that a child has a backpack full of life experiences. And what we do is help to provide lots of experiences, tools, if you will, that they can and will continue to use as they grow, learn, and develop. Now I'm going to share a story with you about my daughter. My daughter is an only child. And from the time she was born, she was an observer and she would stick very close to me. I knew that she would naturally stay back and watch most of the time instead of stepping forward and saying what she needed to say. And in life, there are many, many, many times when you have to step forward. You have to say what you need, and you have to have the courage to be able to interact, engage, and collaborate with others, right? So we started with little steps, and this was about when she was 3 or 4, and we did a lot of little things before then, but very intentional at 3 and 4. At restaurants, for example, when she wanted more water, or when she wanted her favorite, like more of rice and beans, which were her favorite things to eat, I would say to her, Gia, if you want more water, the words you can say are, can I have more water, please, when the server comes back. If you want more rice and beans, the words you can say are, can I have more rice and beans, please? We would go to amusement parks or the fair. And, being an only child kind of is not fun when you're riding by yourself. And sometimes it would be a single child in front of us in line, or maybe there would be 3 kids in line and the ride had like a seating of 2. And so there'd be an extra kid. And so I would say to her, Gia, if you want to ride with that child, the words you can say are, hey, do you want to ride together? I'm Gia. Was it scary? Oh yeah, lots of scariness, right? Even as an adult, that's scary. And I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that it was a scary experience. And doing things that are new to us can feel super scary. So we would take a deep breath. We would consider, the child might say, no, thank you. And that's okay. Or even like, no, you weirdo. And that's okay too, right? Like what could be the potential end result? And we would be just prepared for whatever happened, emotionally prepared. And so we would be scared. She would be scared. And do it anyway. So now she's 14, nearly 15, and it's still scary at times, but she knows how to interact in settings where she doesn't know anyone. She also has the language to say what she wants and what she needs. Think about the significance of and the power behind having those tools as she moves into her later teen years, into her early adulthood and beyond. So when we're supporting children's social and emotional development, we're helping children develop these foundational skills, approaches, abilities, all readily available in their backpack, or really in their brain, but we'll say backpack. So now let's talk about behavior management for a minute. Behavior management is an old school approach that basically makes an attempt to manage behaviors. It doesn't really focus on who the child is as an individual, what might be happening in their life, or even thinking about what they might be communicating through their behavior. Because, side note, children communicate their needs, wants, what they don't want through their behaviors. They communicate things that might be happening where they're feeling very overwhelmed or overstimulated. They do all that through behavior. Okay? So basically what it comes down to is behavior management is, here's a rule. You broke the rule. So you need to be punished, or there needs to be a consequence for your behavior. So you'll think twice before you do it again. So you'll learn not to do that next time, right? Or we're thinking, you know better than that, right? And I know some of you are watching this and we're like, yeah, because they need to know better. They need to know how to act right, right? Okay, so let's go there for a minute. I'm going to sidestep another little story. You're going to be like, Isela, where are we going with this? Just stick with me here. Okay. Have you ever known better about something, but you still didn't do what was best for you? Like intellectually you knew, but you did it anyway. So I'm just going to throw out some examples. So maybe like you tell yourself, I'm not going to have that piece of cake, or I'm not going to have that second piece of pie, or I'm not going to drink that pop or Coke or soda, whatever you call it, or I'm not going to smoke that cigarette, or I'm not going to spend that money because I need to make sure that I have enough money for XYZ, my retirement, my rent, my whatever, right? So we sit there in this space of, I'm not going to do it. 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 I have the willpower. I know it's not good for me. I know it's not right for me. And I want you to think about that child in the first grade and in the second grade, even in preschool, where we have the expectation to stand still, keep your hands to yourself, all of these rules. Okay. And they're sitting there, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. Okay. So what we're trying to do is manage behavior, and it's all built on willpower. And if you have made any New Year's resolutions, how you doing with that? Because it's all about willpower, right? And there we go. And we have that piece of cake, we have that cigarette, or we're hitting that buy now button. And we're thinking, what am I doing? If we understand this through an SEL perspective, we would be wondering about why. Why are you wanting that piece of cake? Why are you wanting to spend money? Why are you wanting that cigarette? There are a lot of other things that we can include here, by the way. These are just a few examples. Okay? Are you feeling some type of way? Are you feeling a way that's uncomfortable to you? Or maybe something happened and you're trying to distract yourself. Or maybe it's a cake that your abuela used to make, and there's a sentimental experience happening for you. Like there could be a lot of things happening, right? And maybe you don't know what to do instead when you're feeling sad or frustrated or sentimental or overwhelmed or irritated. And so this is what you go to find comfort. Okay? So let's go back to behavior management. And see, many of us come from this punishment model. Our schools still use punishment. And the problem with this, like in the example I just gave, is it doesn't take into account what we know about the child. It doesn't help a child know how to notice what they're feeling and what to do once they start feeling that way. And this is that when even though we know better, it's really hard for us to do better. Right? Because it takes practice in knowing what to do differently. When I'm starting to have this emotional experience or when I'm starting to think about certain things, I immediately start to fill in the blank. So in order for us to learn what to do instead, we have to know what to do instead. So this is a tool, an approach, a skill, and we have to practice, 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 and practice. And we make assumptions that kids can regulate their behaviors. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in just a minute. Now, when we look at behavior management, it's a system of rules, and the expectation is to follow these rules, even if you don't understand these rules. And even if your brain and body, they're still learning how to do that, how to manage itself, how to control itself, how to be aware that I've just gotten to a place where I feel frustrated and very overwhelmed. That's self-regulation, right? Now, you want to guess when self-regulation skills are fully developed? Now, the idea has been, the belief has been, the research has said that it actually doesn't develop until like mid-20s. Now, there are other people with different research, different perspectives that actually say it goes beyond that we are continually developing these skills in lots of different aspects in our lives. So just remember that if you have a teenager, okay, or you have a preschooler, it doesn't matter, that they're developing still the ability to be able to manage their behaviors, okay? Now, I know some of you are thinking, but they need to know better, right? I can tell you from my own personal experience that me as a child, there is a difference between behaving out of fear and choosing a behavior because it's the best option given the situation. As a child, my goal became not getting caught. And I got really good at lying and manipulating. And I'm not saying that's what happens all of the time, but I can't tell you how many times I remember saying to my friends, oh, the teacher's coming, hurry, the teacher's coming, because we were avoiding punishment. And far too often, the punishment has to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I have to tell you, that impacts the child's sense of self. And it also impacts their ability to take healthy risks. And you need to be able to take healthy risks when you are learning something new and different. So when we're supporting the development of social and emotional skills, we're helping them learn important life skills from the inside out, not the outside in. Does it take longer? Yeah, sometimes. And it means that we have to also be responsible for our own social and emotional skills, which is called emotional intelligence. Go look it up. There's lots of information online about emotional intelligence. It's important to remember that children don't learn from what we say. They learn from who we are. They watch us as we interact in the world. And they notice how we show up for them. So let's make a commitment. Let's make a commitment here and now to start to let go of these belief systems around behavior management and believing that children need to be punished in order to learn, and really focusing on developing and supporting children's social and emotional learning. Deal? See you next time.